Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For this episode of Solved by DNA, I thought we'd take just one little bit of a swerve, and instead of doing true crime, let's do something a little bit Jerry Springer like. Back in the 1800s, yes, you heard me, Who's Your Daddy? Episode 2 is Who's Your Daddy? Solved by DNA. All right, let's get into this. I had a little bit too much fun with this, as you will see. Let me give you my copyright disclaimer. Almost everything you see here is in the public domain, but I'll still try to give credit where credit is due. Oral tradition, handing down family history, otherwise known as lore, via stories, has gone on since time immemorial. And two families had a story of an illegitimate child born in 1887. And by the way, the names in this entire story and in the scientific paperwork that made the headlines in the scientific journals, they've been changed. So let's just go ahead and have fun with this, okay? So let's travel back in time and space to Upper Austria. It's 1885. There's a blacksmith journeyman named Xavier. And that's not an Austrian name, but whatever, let's go with it. Maybe they were trying to go with a kind of a French name, like Xavier. I don't know, but let's go with it. He's not the eldest son of the family who would naturally inherit the family business of blacksmithing. And so he becomes an adult and he leaves the family farm in Upper Austria to make his way in the world. And if I had to guess by today's map, I'm going to circle where I think that this started, okay? Just guessing. So Xavier gets a job in a city that we are told is a former eastern state of the Austrian Empire. So let's go with a city like Marienbad. That's the part I'm adding to this tale. I'm guessing as to what the city is. We'll say it's either Marienbad or it's Ronkville. So Xavier falls in love with a master smith's daughter named Dina. Again, not an Austrian name at all, not even French, okay? So Dina. So Xavier is working for Dina's father and they fall in love. But Dina's father doesn't like that, so he fires Xavier. Then Xavier goes off to find new work in a neighboring town and he finds a job in a factory there. Then, age 17, Dina runs away to be with Xavier in this other town. But they're not living together. Dina, age 17, she finds work in a live-in household in a large mansion in a Jewish family. And by the way, this is important to the story, so I'm going to mention it. Here's the backstory. Xavier is a traditional Gentile. Probably he was Catholic, Christian, Catholic, whatever was most prevalent in the city of his birth, okay? So he's a Gentile, but Dina was a mix of Catholic and Jewish, so she's half Jewish, all right? Dina finds work in a live-in household in a large mansion in a Jewish family, all right? The master of the house is named Ron, and I just want to go, oh my God, the phone names are killing me. What Austrians are named Dina, Ron, and Xavier? I mean, I don't know. Couldn't they come up with something with like Hans and Gretel or Ava or Elise or something like that? I mean, I don't know. It's killing me dead. This excerpt comes from the article that started all this. It can be found on ScienceDirect.com, and it's called 19th Century Family Saga Retold by DNA by Cordula Haas et al. The industrialist, we call him Ron, 30 years old, was attracted by this reportedly very pretty but dependent Dina in the servants' quarters. In September 1886, they became close, and 9 months later, Renz was born to Dina. Renz received the Jewish rituals and was baptized in a Catholic church. Xavier made a steep career in the factory, married Dina in February of 1889, and adopted the 1.5-year-old child. Ron made a grand wedding present and supported the Xavier family with more kids to come, including Arles and 2 further siblings. This picture is an old print of Munich outfits, by the way. So here we have Xavier, Ron, the Jewish shopkeeper, and Dina. They believe that they've had a son called Rents, and he's cool with it. He's really cool with assuming the child is his, and he goes ahead and says, yep, okay, y'all are going to get married. Let me, make you a grand wedding present, and I'll support the kid. So Dina and Xavier dance off into the sunset again with the now adopted son Rents, and then they have Arl and 2 other unnamed siblings. It's so funny because they changed the name anyway, so why unnamed? Why do you have 2 unnamed siblings? This thing is driving me crazy. I wish they'd just go ahead and say who's who. So then World War I happens, and Rents and Arl, they're the children, the son and the stepson of Xavier and Dina. They're sent off into battle, and they travel around the world. And postcards with stamps and correspondence was saved from this time period. This picture is actually from the scientific article and shows 3 different postcards and correspondence with the corresponding postage stamps from the time periods, and we will get into this. I just wanted to show you. This is an actual photo from the article with the evidence. Time goes by, and Rents is required to pass his ancestry declaration. Okay, because we all know what happened when the Nazis invaded Austria. We're talking about March 12th, 1938. Nazis marched into Austria, and by May of 1938, the Nuremberg race laws were in full effect there. When Kristallnacht happened, 1938, where the synagogue and the cemetery and places like Marienbad were destroyed, a lot of the Jews fled to Prague. And some people hid, and some people just passed, okay? And so going under Xavier's bloodline, Rents would only be a quarter Jewish, compared to Ron's bloodline, which would make him 3/4 Jewish. Assuming Ron was Rents's father made him 3/4 Jewish. And the family began hiding what they thought was a deep, dark family secret, hiding the bloodline from the Nazis. And so Rents's Jewish ancestry was kept a deep, dark secret, and the family lived in fear of being deported to the concentration camps over it. Seemingly, the family all survived the Holocaust. But the burning question for the family seemingly was, what was the true ancestry of Rents? Who is his daddy? Was it Ron or was it Xavier? So after more than a century of keeping this deep, dark family secret, the descendants of Rents decided they wanted to know the truth. Was Rents fathered by Ron, the Jewish factory owner that Dina had worked for and lived at his place when she gave birth in 1887? Or was his true father Xavier, who had been in love with Dina and had lost his job because his dad kicked him out because they were in love, and who married her in 1889 and had 3 other children? Who was the daddy? In May of 2017, Cordula Haas, who is a forensic scientist from the University of Zurich, and I'll put up her CV here, she was approached by the descendants of Rents who wanted to solve the mystery. And all the nitty-gritty of this mystery is in this article. You can find one of them at ScienceDirect.com. The name of the article is 19th Century Family Saga Retold by DNA Recovered from Postcard Stamps. Cordula Haas is one of the main authors of said article. So they had to look at what they knew. They knew that the mother was Dina. The father was thought to be Ron. Ron himself thought he was the father. Xavier seemingly also thought that Ron was the father, and Xavier considered himself the stepfather. So that was the oral history of the matter. Then you have to do some DNA sampling, and at this point that they're looking into it, they're 3 generations down from Xavier. Okay, so there's a challenge because the Y chromosome is passed from father to son, and I believe that there were some females involved which broke the Y chromosomal line, making it a little more difficult for the ancestors to figure out what's what. Oh, also want to add that the relatives wanted to remain anonymous, so they were going through the scientists in the lab and stuff. And they gave postcards sent by the supposed father, Ron, and by the son, Renz. And in the lab, Haas and her colleagues, they removed the stamps from postcards and from letters using steam. And then they would check to see whether there was saliva detectable using an enzyme test. So that was the first thing, was to steam off the stamp, then check it for enzymes and try not to make any mistakes. Then they try to extract the DNA from the glue. And you have to take a lot of precautions to avoid damaging the DNA, and also trying not to contaminate it in the process. Apparently, Haas said that one of the biggest challenges in working with the ancient DNA is the risk of contamination. After 18 months, Haas hit a wall because the DNA of Ron was too degraded to compare it to the other trace evidence. Just to give you an easier taste of the science in this article, you can see here 5 descendants of Dina gave permission for genetic analysis aimed at confirming the true ancestry of Renz, and it included 3 grandsons of Renz who had only daughters. Remember, I was talking about the unbroken line of the Y, and one of Renz's then living 97-year-old daughters, and a granddaughter of Arl. And then 4 other people provided buccal swabs, that's your cheek swabs, for the STR analysis, and all 5 descendants provided saliva samples for genealogical testing. So with all these ancestors getting their DNA samples with the intent of validating this big secret that Ron was truly the father of Renz, they still did not have enough until they went to the postcards. One was sent by Ron to a friend in 1922. Several were sent by Renz in 1917, and one by Arl while he was on a business tour in 1922. And with the help of this ancient DNA, recovered from over 100-year-old postage stamps on postcards, the scientists were able to disclose a secret and rewrite a family saga. Almost complete DNA profiles were recovered from some of those postage stamps, and most importantly, that Y chromosomal DNA of Arl's and Renz. And the familial Y chromosomal haplotype was confirmed. No question. Arl's, Renz, and Sepp, that was another descendant, they inherited the Y chromosome from a common male ancestor. That means, drum roll, your daddy was Xavier the whole darn time. So Renz and Arls and the others, they were full brothers, not half brothers. Hence, Xavier was the father. So long story short, while it was advantageous to claim that Xavier was the father of the adopted child for the sake of protecting him against the Nazis, Xavier was actually the father of the child. You know, who'd have thunk it? So I don't know how the relatives felt about that. I don't know if they were a little disappointed. Who knows? But isn't that fascinating? I just think that it's fascinating that DNA can solve these mysteries. Wired in their article did bring up a concern about this, though. Let's look. They wrote, as genetic genealogy is increasingly being used to unravel family mysteries, it also opens up a big can of worms. For one, don't the dead deserve some privacy? The deceased, due to their complicated circumstances, can never give consent to the testing. Quote, the notion that you can take the DNA of someone who lived in a time before cars, who could never even anticipated the notion that their private life or their private relationships or their child born out of a relationship outside of their marriage could have been discovered in this way, that's stunning, says Libby Copeland, a journalist and author of the book The Lost Family, How DNA Testing is Upending Who We Are. Quote, you can uncover all sorts of stories that people would not have wanted to come to light. Well, yeah. I think it's something worth considering, but I'm not going to consider it here. I just think it's fascinating and it's a welcome breath of fresh air from the true crime. So if you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe bell. We're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming, and without further ado, have an excellent day. Bye.